Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Rising Tide Leadership Podcast, Identity and Influence. Lem, welcome back.
Hey, always glad to be here. Thank you for getting us together to have these conversations about identity and influence. Looking forward to where this conversation takes us.
Yeah, today we're talking about Leadership Lesson 43, 1 Day of Learning.
Yeah,
Why
yeah,
don't you tell us about this article and the inspiration behind it?
yeah. So part of these leadership lessons, again, are lessons that I am learning, not necessarily the one that I'm teaching, but since we created this identity and influence podcast, we're talking about some of these lessons. And in my leadership practice, I realized that like if you are not setting aside time to learn and plan in your leadership, then you can burn out, you can get maxed out. Yeah, if you fail to plan, like you will miss a bunch of things. And so the main lesson is set aside some time weekly to plan. And it's called a day of learning because it's an example that I give, but it doesn't have to necessarily be a day, but we'll get into
Yeah, in the article, you talk about a specific executive that you ran across, and he
it.
shared his week and how strict he was in the strategizing process.
Yeah.
Why do you think it's such a high level leader type thing to prioritize that kind of commitment to your week?
Yeah, the example was a multi-million-dollar executive, like he was an executive for multiple companies. And so when you're doing that many things, you really have to prioritize what is important because you can fill your calendar and you can fill your schedule with so many things, but you want the highest return on investment, even on your calendar, not just for your money, but in with your time. And so this guy would spend one day planning out his week. And typically at this level, you have a bunch of people, you have personal assistants. And so you're spending time with that people, with your team, setting aside, you know, these are all the things that matter. Cause you're going to always have more things that can fit on your schedule than you have time for. And, taking the time to plan it out really just kind of helps you with your week. It helps you to be efficient. It helps you with performance. It just helps all the way around.
So, a lot of leaders are caught up in meetings,
Yeah.
emails, constant problem solving. Why do you think that is? And why is it so difficult for leaders to step back from the daily grind and invest in the reflection
Yeah.
and learning that you're talking about?
Yeah, I think one of the things is it's leadership culture. Like some leadership cultures and organizations are just they meeting out like all the time because it feels good, because they love working with people, they love meeting. But I think another reason why you need to have so many meetings and you need to constantly problem solve is because of two things. You don't have clear vision, right? Because clear vision gives you direction. And then the other thing is you don't have a good enough system to take care of things. So if you got clear vision and you know where you're headed, and you got the systems in place to make that run, you're not necessarily like problem solving all the time. And the reason why I know this is because I've worked for organizations where, the vision, we were working on the vision and we were working on the system and it was constant problem solving. And then once the vision got clear and once the systems were put in place, like you weren't necessarily problem solving because we got the right people in the right seats on the bus and they knew what their job was. And it started working where we weren't solving problems all the time. I think the lack of vision, the lack of the clarity in vision, and missing systems kind of gets you in this situation. Honestly, some people just love meeting.
Do very many people meet in person anymore?
With the pandemic and Zoom taking over, like we've gotten more used to it. But man, I've seen organizations, and I've been part of organizations recently, and I've gotten calls from like, hey, let's meet about this. In fact, I had a guy last week, like, I hadn't seen in a while. Let's meet up. And so we met up and we had a conversation. But like, yeah, I think there's just still something about meeting and seeing each other face to face, that people still like. Yeah, we can get as much done this way, 100%. Some cultures just like love the kumbaya feel about let's get. But again, that's a culture thing.
The executive in this article said that learning and strategizing are not occasional events. They should be weekly habits. How have you seen learning integrated into leadership practice in a consistent way?
If you are, I know you're a reader, and I know you're constantly learning and reading books, reading articles, blogs from, the right people, the guys that are they teach leadership. And so you're a student of leadership, and I know you're constantly learning. The strategizing is really important so that, again, you're focused and you're not maxed out. But I think what I would add is you need tactical meetings as well as strategy meetings, and I think these should be weekly habits. Because I've even in organizations that I've been a part of, we had to differentiate between the strategizing and a tactical meeting because you can get lost in either. You know what I mean? And so if we didn't set aside time to be strategic, it's always easier to talk about tactics, right? Like we just want to talk about the things that we do, but the strategizing really, really helps guide the tactical. And what I found, like in meetings, is like if it was a strategy meeting, you still talk a little tactics, and if it was a tactical meeting, you'd have to point back to strategic. But like if you just know the difference, then you can kind of uh, have more efficient meetings. Because you and I mean, I've been in meetings where it's an hour and a half, 2 hours, and we talk, and at the end of it, you're like, what did we do? What did we accomplish? You know what I mean? We just talk. Nobody has clear direction. I mean, I've been part of organizations where I'm sitting there, and then the leadership is working out a thing like in front of the meeting. Like they like work out all
Yeah.
of your stuff, like, don't work it out in the meeting with us. Like, work it out in your executive team. And then when you're clear on it, roll it out. But like, they start rolling it out, and then they start like strategizing. And then like, you see all these executives are they're arguing with each other and like, okay, we don't need to be here because like, you guys aren't clear on vision. You guys aren't clear on systems. And so like, get your act together.
Why do you think that leaders often confuse the urgent with the important, and how does that affect their ability to lead strategically?
Oh, I mean, it feels good to have done something, and strategy work is hard, right? And so when you are, focused on the urgent, and sometimes I've seen high level leaders like focus in on the urgent, and then they circumvent all of the leadership structure in place. Like they shouldn't be doing that work. Like set the right people to do that urgent work. You're getting paid to lead. You know what I mean? You're getting paid to strategize. You're getting paid to like communicate vision. And so when you're fixing all of the things, maybe it's just an organization that does that. Like it's all different, but like I think you need to get the right people in the right place. And like, um, if it's urgent, like how many other people are in place to handle that? As a leader, like you need to not just step in. So the urgent feels better. Yeah.
The executive in this article takes one full day every week to focus on learning and strategy. Do you think that's realistic for most leaders? Or is that something that only the top level folks get to do?
So I think the principle is to take some time in the week to learn and strategize. If you're running a multi-billion dollar company, multiple companies, you're going to need to take that full day. You see what I'm saying? And so like for me, I'm not running like a multi-billion dollar company, but I still take time every week to learn and strategize. And I still go over my values. I go over my goals. I go over vision for what I've set up for myself, and then I reflect. I value. I don't necessarily spend one full day every week. I would say I spend a full day every quarter. I spend maybe a couple of hours, anywhere from 1 to 4 hours a week, just taking a look at everything like finances. I take a look at values. I take a look at my schedule. I take a look at my goals. And then I try to align all of that with how am I going to have an effective and efficient week, in light of my vision, my values, all these other things. And so, yeah, a full day might be a lot, but if you are running multiple things, you're going to need that full day. I think the principle again is, set aside some time to learn and strategize about whatever kind of leadership you're doing.
What are we expecting to learn from these times that we devote for strategy?
If you're in a situation where you don't have uninterrupted time, this lesson's for you. The lesson is set aside some time so that you can have uninterrupted time to help get organized so that you can learn and strategize and again be more efficient. It takes discipline. The amount of time you take planning ahead of time translate to translates to increased performance and efficiency in your leadership. And so, like, yeah, what the breakthroughs that you need is to just sit with your calendar and set aside 30 minutes, an hour, 2 hours to plan and think and strategize. And that time is gonna just make you more efficient, increase your performance.
What's the risk for leaders who don't stay current or they fail to grow in their knowledge base?
We just recorded an episode on situational leadership and understanding the context that you're in. If you don't spend the time every week studying trends, taking a look at technologies and new ideas, I mean, there's a lot of news happening these days, and it impacts markets, it impacts people, it impacts the way that people spend money, it impacts like what they do. And if you can't stay current and if you can't stay on top of all of that and adjust your leadership practice for it, then I think you miss out. I think the risk is that you miss out and that, you don't look current in your conversations.
How does that regular vision refining help to keep the team aligned and motivated over time?
I've seen leaders that wherever they're speaking, like whatever context they're in, they can work vision in and they're constantly communicating vision. And so somebody that's regularly refining vision, someone that's thinking about it, is able to communicate it. And vision needs to be communicated again and again and again. You can't just say it once and expect people to get it. If you are communicating vision in every meeting that you're in every setting that you get an opportunity, to share, and then if you do it in light of the specific context that you're talking to, I mean, it just helps people to understand vision. And so the refinement is being able to communicate your vision.
Carving out an entire day sounds great to me. I would love to do that,
Yeah.
but it also seems overwhelming to me.
Yeah.
How do I build towards a discipline where I'm spending a full day?
I try to spend a full day every quarter, and I definitely spend a day or two every year just to kind of plan the year. Again, the principle is to set aside some time, and it doesn't have to necessarily be a day, but a few out. I mean, even just a few hours, a couple of hours a week will help. The thing is, once you get a system down, then it's easy. Once you get your list of questions down, what worked this week? What was your big three? What didn't work this week? What are you gonna continue doing? What are you gonna change for next week? You see what I'm saying? I have all of my. I just shared some of my questions, right? These are the questions that I go over, and once you have a system in place, you're not necessarily. It gets a lot easier because you're not just sitting there like, okay, what do I think about? No, you got these prompts to help you. What's my big three? Did I complete my big three? Take a look at each one of those things and evaluate it, reflect on it. Did it work? Did it not work? What am I going to continue to do in order to keep moving my vision forward? Right? Did it what I do align with my values? You see, these are all the questions. Like if you just write down all the questions that I just spouted off in the last 2 minutes, like all of a sudden you have like 10, 15 questions that you can work through in order to set aside, well, in order to be more efficient, in order to learn about yourself and strategize about your week. And so I think having a system, having some questions in place really can help you to do this.
Yeah, speaking of questions, in the article, the executive asks a great question. He says, if leaders don't prioritize learning and strategy, who will?
Right.
So, how do you think that idea challenges the way that we define leadership and leadership success in today's world?
I think the question is born out of the idea that we don't necessarily connect our learning and strategizing with leadership, right? We just think I'm in a leadership role and I'm doing leadership. I don't have to learn or strategize. And I think that's the miss. If you're in leadership and if you have some leadership ability, I think it correlates with your learning and your strategizing, learning about yourself, learning about the trends, learning about context, learning leadership principles, and then strategizing to make those work for your leadership path.
25 years ago, I remember you asked me, you said, like, Mo, what do you do? Do you take any time? I said, what are you talking about? I don't have time. He
Yeah.
said, well, that's why you have to make time. And so for somebody listening, how do they know that that's what they need to do?
Um, I've seen mentors do it, and I've seen other leaders do it, and I've seen other people talk about it. And then once you get into the practice of doing it, then you realize like, yeah, this is really important. This will really help me in my leadership. And so it's seeing other people doing and then like, me doing it by myself. But I've also had leaders and I've also had mentors that like I've done this with where we've gone away to like plan, to strategize, and then that helps us out with, the tactical stuff. But yeah, it's just so important to learn and strategize.
What would you say that a leader who wants to take on this challenge, but says, I feel like I'm maxed out. I feel like I don't have anything else to give Lim. What do I do?
If you're maxed out, then you lack some clarity on vision, on your values. I mean, if you're maxed out, like you definitely need to take the time to plan and organize. So yeah, if you want to take on this challenge and you feel maxed out, it's because you haven't spent enough time learning and strategizing. So set aside some time to do that. And it's really counterintuitive. It actually helps you to be more efficient and it helps you with your performance.
Yeah. What's one practical step for our listeners that they can take this week? They say, I want to be better at becoming strategic. I want to get into
Yeah.
a rhythm in my life.
Yeah.
What do I do?
Okay, I'll give you a couple practical steps. One, get clear on your values. These are my values. Don't do anything outside whatever you value. Two, connect your values to your vision. If you don't have a vision, write one down. And then you have clarity on these are my values, these are the only things that I'm gonna do, and it's gonna get me to my vision. This is what it looks like. But the third practical step, I think, is you need to find a system that works. Now, I use the full focus planner. This is the system that I use, and it helps me to plan and reflect and evaluate on my life, on my productivity. I list out my projects, I list out my values. These are my goals for the quarter, these are my goals for the year. And then every day there's reflective practices. Every week before and after there are reflective practices. What worked? What didn't work? What's your big three? And so like when I write down my big three things that I want to get done this week, like that's what I focus on. Those are the big three. Then I write the big three for the day. These are what I focus on. And if I, for whatever reason, I didn't get it done, I move it to the next day and it becomes part of my big three the next day. But what it does is it gives me a system to constantly evaluate and reflect. And so that I'm learning about myself. I'm learning about the way that I work. I'm learning about how I organize my week. And then I strategically put things in place so that I'm I'm effective and I'm efficient and that my performance goes up. So find a system that works for you, and you'll thank us for it.
If you have never taken the DISC assessment, we would really encourage you to do that. And we do that here at Rising Tide. And if you've never gone over your values, Lem's your guy. And you can reach out to us and we'll connect you with him and he'll take you through the actual process that he has taken himself and so many others through. And once you know those, you start getting into a rhythm because now you know what you're good at. Now you know what is exciting and important to you. And so that's my plug for
Love it.
Dr. Lem. It's
Love
helped.
it.
It's helped me. It's helped others in our organization and several organizations. So, Dr. Lem, before we go, what are your
Yes,
final
sir.
thoughts?
If you want to be efficient and if you want to increase your performance, set aside some time for learning and strategy. Set aside some time to invest in yourselves so that you can be better leaders.
That about wraps this one up. Leadership lesson 43, 1 day of learning. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, and sign up for our free newsletter and get on your journey. Start the system now, and it will do wonders because the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, right?
Yeah, yeah,
But the next
it's
best
true.
time to plant a tree is today. So
Yeah,
let's plant that tree. Let's plant those seeds in leadership, and let's change the world. Dr. Lem, it's
right
been
on.
great, brother. As
Yes,
always, I
sir.
appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Thanks for making the time.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right, we'll see you guys next time.